Hey everyone, it's Kevin here, back again with a review of the iPhone 15 Pro Max. If you're thinking about upgrading your iPhone from something like an iPhone 12 Pro, which is what I was coming from, then I think this review might be helpful for you. Let's start things off with the design. The design language of the iPhone hasn't really changed much since the iPhone 12. We've got these flat sides that are kind of squared off, but this year they actually did refine things a little bit, and the squared off corners are not as sharp to hold, so it's actually a lot more comfortable to hold in the hand, which I really do appreciate. On the other hand, the new titanium build of the Pro series is just okay. It attracts fingerprints just as much. It is lighter, but I kind of do miss the shinier, more jewelry-like feel of the iPhone 12 to 14. Most people are probably going to put a case on anyway, so this probably isn't that big of a deal for most people. But if you are thinking about going caseless, just something to think about. Let's talk about the size of the iPhone 15. So as I mentioned before, I am upgrading from an iPhone 12 Pro, so the non-Max version, and this year I am trying a Max version iPhone for the first time, and it was difficult for me to decide which one I should get. I really wanted the extra battery life, the extra screen real estate, as well as that 5x zoom, but I just wasn't sure if I wanted to have like such a large phone in my pocket all day. Ultimately, obviously, I made the decision to get the larger phone, and while it has taken some getting used to, I feel like it isn't as unwieldy as I thought it would be, and yeah, I'm ultimately pretty happy with my decision. Speaking of the battery life, the battery on the iPhone 15 Pro Max has been really good for me, actually. I know that folks were complaining that the battery would drain really quickly, especially with earlier versions of iOS, but I haven't really had issues at all with the battery or with the overheating. I don't use my phone too much, probably just an average amount, and I'm able to get around 2 days of battery life without charging. So I'm very happy with this battery life. And 2 days for me is around like 6 hours of screen on time, if that helps. Charging via USB-C has been pretty good, but nothing really to write home about. Honestly, the biggest benefit of USB-C for me has been being able to use my SIM card USB-C adapter and just edit photos from my mirrorless camera directly on my iPhone, which has been nice. All right, let's talk about the camera. Apple says that the iPhone 15 Pro Max has some ridiculous number of lenses, but ultimately it boils down to the 0.5x ultra wide, the normal wide 1x, a cropped version of this 1x, which is just 2x, and then finally the 5x true telephoto camera. The performance has been really nice. This main sensor, which is 48 megapixels now compared to the 12 before, is a huge improvement, and I have been getting some great shots with the main sensor. Some things that, coming from the 12, that feel a little bit different to me are, one, this like automatic switching to macro mode when I'm taking pictures of subjects that are kind of close, like food. And this switching was bothering me a lot in the very beginning. However, I found a way to turn off this like auto switching, so pretty happy about that now. Another thing with shooting close-up subjects is that the depth of field is actually very shallow on this main sensor. So you'll find that like if you're taking pictures of food, only a sliver of the food tends to be truly in focus, while the rest seems to have like some like fall off or fringing, which, you know, you just have to be more thoughtful about how you're taking your photos. Let's talk a little bit about the 5x telephoto. So this has been pretty awesome, if I'm being honest. Being able to zoom in so far lets you think about how to compose your photos in a different way. And I feel like I've gotten a little bit more creative with how I want to shoot particular subjects. So I think this really comes in handy when you're shooting things like architecture, where you can really zoom in and isolate specific parts of a building or whatnot. So walking around New York City, pulling up the 5x telephoto and shooting pictures of buildings that are completely isolated gives a very unique look to photos. And so yeah, I really like this 5x telephoto. Finally, action mode, especially with the 5x, has been really, really cool. The smoothing is quite good. It's just like you're shooting with a gimbal. And I was actually pretty startled because when I was using a 5x and trying to do a certain motion, it looked really, really shaky when I was taking the video. But after viewing it in the Photos app, the iPhone smoothed it all out and it looked like it was straight up from a gimbal. So pretty sick. One thing to point out is that the camera bump is really large this year, so it seems to be getting larger every year. But when you compare it against the iPhone 12, it's just like it's like 2 times more protruding than the iPhone 12's camera bump was. Now, some miscellaneous improvements that I found from upgrading from my iPhone 12 Pro to the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And I don't think a lot of these are particular to the iPhone 15. I think some of them were available on the iPhone 14 or even the 13, but this is just my perspective from making this upgrade. So the first is Face ID. I think it's noticeably improved on the iPhone 15. It works at various off angles. So I used to find that if my iPhone was sitting on the tabletop, I would really have to like hover over it to get it to unlock. And sometimes even when I did that, you would need to like swipe up a couple times or end up having to type in your password. But with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, it works on a tabletop. It pretty much is like seamless most of the time. So I feel like Face ID has improved a lot. And it also works horizontally, which is cool. The high refresh rate display. I didn't think I would really notice or enjoy, but it makes the experience really zippy and feel really fast compared to my previous version. And I didn't think I would appreciate this, but when I turned my iPhone into low power mode once, I noticed that the screen looked choppy and I was like, oh man, is something wrong with the phone? And then I realized that when you put it on low power mode, it makes the high refresh like ProMotion display go back to I think like 60 frames per second instead of 120. And yeah, I was like, wow, I didn't realize that I would actually notice a difference, but apparently I do, and I really appreciate it. The dynamic island, the apps that have taken advantage of it, I found provide pretty interesting functionality. So the Uber app will tell you how close the Uber is just in the dynamic island. And I've even found like in the United app, it will tell you where your gate is before you board. It'll tell you how much time you have left before boarding starts or when boarding closes. So I think like the apps that have taken advantage of it are the ones where like you would need to check really constantly and flip back and forth between what you're actually doing on your phone versus like status updates for particular things. So yeah, dynamic island, pretty cool. The action button. So this is something that I kind of forgot about until I started to think about this review. And I've actually programmed the action button to perform different actions when I'm in different focus modes. So when I'm not in any focus mode, I have the action button to launch the camera, which honestly I forgot about that it does that. And then when I'm in the sleep focus mode, when I click the action button, it will turn on and off the light in the bedroom. I used the Apple Shortcuts app for this, and if you want to see a video on that, definitely leave a comment below and I can do a walkthrough of that. And finally, another small thing, but the speakers are really loud and crisp on this phone. The speakers on my iPhone 12 were really degrading in sound quality over the past couple of months or years. I'm hoping that these stay really crisp and loud without any distortion. Okay, some concluding thoughts. I think if you have an iPhone 12 or earlier, upgrading to a 15 is almost a no-brainer. You get a lot of the benefits from the generations in between, and then you also get like the benefits of the 15. So whether it be like the slightly lighter phone because of the titanium or the rounded edges or the upgraded camera, I think those are all like valid benefits that you'd get from a newer generation of iPhone. If you have the 13 or 14, I think you can definitely hold off. A lot of the things that I enjoy about my 15 are features that were already available on the 13 or 14 Pros, at least. I think upgrading iPhones on a 3-year cadence seems to be the right cycle these days instead of every year. So yeah, that's been it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a thing or two. And if you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments down below. All right. Thanks for watching.